So Invincible Season 3 has just concluded, and I think the main thing I want to talk about and the main takeaway that you can take from this season is Mark and his morality choices he makes throughout the season. Let's talk about it. One of the big things going on so far is the differing ideologies between Oliver and Mark. It very much so feels like Oliver has no humanity to him. Maybe it's done like that on purpose, maybe it's not, and that's why I want to have this discussion. The one thing for sure that has been consistent throughout the entire series so far is Mark's character. Because his powers came in so late, he grew up idealizing what Omni-Man was to the people, a symbol of hope, peace, and a protector of all. He grew up to respect humans, his family, friends, social life. These are things that he puts on a mask for, things that he cherishes the most. Which is why when the shift in Omni-Man happens in season 1, it was devastating to him. This isn't just a father figure to him, it's his actual effing father. Killing the Guardians, telling him that they're above Earthlings, calling his mother a pet, it seems way too out of the blue for Mark. I do believe if Mark's powers developed sooner that this probably wouldn't have happened. He would have been more likely to believe Nolan in the things that he was saying and his conquest to enslave humanity. I believe it was an error on Nolan's part that he waited so long to tell Mark. That's the real reason that they stand on opposite grounds when it comes to morality, and that's where Oliver comes in. We didn't get to personally see a lot of Omni-Man's character growth, but we do notice instantly the next time we've seen him, this man has changed. He grew a soft spot for Debbie and Mark. That's why he couldn't finish a job and start over with another family like he said he would. But also kinda, he did start over. You see, after he left Earth, he landed on this planet with these bug aliens and somehow wound up marrying the Queen and having a kid with them. This will spell disaster for the planet's future at sacrifice. Because of the things he has learned from the people there and the people on Earth and about himself, he fought for the ones he loved against the Viltrumites, becoming a criminal and a deserter to them in the process. The bug aliens will send Oliver home with Mark in hopes that he would have a better life because he would have outlived the entire race if he was left there alone. So Mark and Debbie take him in and raise him like their own and try to teach him the same lessons Mark was taught while also telling him stories about Omni-Man. You see, Oliver has a problem. He idealizes Omni-Man too from the stories that they've been describing from their experiences with him. Oliver developed his powers early. The lessons haven't stuck with him yet as they have done with Mark. So these lessons take a more practical, real-life turn. He has to teach them to Oliver hands-on. Because Oliver developed his powers early, he knows there's a difference between him and normal humans. He looks different, he feels different, and he ages different than the rest of them. Why should he want to appreciate their lives? He idealizes superheroes and what they can do and how they stop the bad guys, but he doesn't get why they never kill the bad guys so they don't cause any more havoc every time they break out of jail. And that's where the whole morality thing comes into play. Oliver is a kid that hasn't learned anything about it yet. This is why the most evil villains in a lot of shows are the ones that are more childlike. Think of something like the Collector in the Owl House, who had to learn a similar lesson. He didn't understand that lives had values to them until he wound up killing Lou and he couldn't fix her like the rest of his toys. I personally don't know what that lesson will look like for Oliver yet, but he has to learn it before it's too late. But I guess then the question comes, is it already too late? When is it too late? He's already killed the Mauler brothers. Does he regret it? It sure doesn't sound like it. It sounds more like he's trying to save face in front of Mark and Debbie. Will this be a constant morality difference between him and Mark for the rest of Invincible's run? Will he agree with the Viltrumites more when he learns about their plans, or will he help his brothers stop them? I'm so curious and to dive more into this division as Invincible continues. The next part of this video will focus on Mark and Powerplex. The Powerplex episode had some of the best writing I've seen within Invincible so far. Do you guys remember season 1? Do you remember Invincible versus Omni-Man? Do you remember how they wrecked almost the entirety of Chicago? Well, Powerplex had some family that died within there, i.e. a sister and a niece. The same girl and daughter that Mark tried to save when the building was collapsing and he ended holding the girl's hand at the end. How poetic. One thing I really like about Invincible is how almost everything goes back to this fight. Every change a villain has, every purpose somebody has, and everything that changes within the world all derives from Invincible versus Omni-Man. From Levy to Oliver being born, to Viltrumites being upset at Mark and Nolan for not doing their mission, to Powerplex even being created. It's just like everything is to do with that fight. Similar things from Levy, Powerplex, or Scott has this hatred festering towards Invincible ever since. Originally he wanted to press charges and take him to court for the people he murdered, but the system failed him. Superheroes are out of their jurisdiction. There's nothing they can do. To keep contact on Mark, he got a job working for the GDP and eventually took some experimental discs home to juice up his powers. If the system won't allow Mark to face the truth, he'll do it himself. His hatred has grown so much that he has this idea of Mark that just isn't true. He believes Mark is cowardice, cocky, bashful, and unapologetic to the people who were injured during the fight. Even though it's widely known that Mark was doing everything he could to try and stop it, but he just couldn't. He sucks at being a superhero. Powerplex finds himself in a similar boat. His only target is Invincible, but people run from him in fear. Heroes are coming to try and stop him. He doesn't want to fight them, but the way his power is set up, he gets stronger and sometimes sends out involuntary shockwaves whenever he takes a lot of damage. Think of something like Speedball from Marvel. But Invincible doesn't show, and each time he gets more and more intense and disturbing. He went from begging the Martian dude to stop because he didn't want to hurt him to later attacking Eve, because if she's protecting Invincible, she's just as bad. He's doing this for the people who died around Invincible. He's doing it without care for others around him. Do you see the comparisons and hypocrisy? He claims his target is only Invincible and he doesn't want anyone else to get hurt, but each action he takes is so carefree and careless that it causes pain and damage to others around him, and yes, it definitely bites him in the ass in the end. His wife, also stricken with deranged anger, has one last plan. He pretends to kidnap her and their baby and call Invincible. Then Invincible finally shows up and he just goes after him. Oh, those rocks almost hit your family. You didn't see that? Only Mark is trying to protect them? Okay, I guess. I hope this turns out well. He uses up most of his powers trying to fry Mark's brains out, wondering how he could go scot-free for all the damage that's happened during fights around him, only for it to be finished, and he turns around to see that his powers, his blind hatred and vengeance, led to his wife and kid being casualties during this fight. His lightning burned them to death. This would, normally for people, make them see the error in their ways. Oh no, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. He doesn't see that. In fact, he doubles down and now blames Invincible for the death of his entire family. And no consoling or sad speeches from Mark is gonna turn this clock back. He's completely gone and refuses to understand Mark. I wanted to include this because I think it's a good example of why Mark has these morals, but also a good example of what happens because of said morals. Because he refuses to kill, events like this will continue to happen, and he's not going to be able to save everyone. Not everybody's going to like him, and sometimes it may cause more pain than necessary. But does that mean he's allowed to kill when necessary? It seems like events keep telling him to, from this to the Oliver situation to the future Immortal situation and what we're about to talk about next. The Invincible War and Conquest are the next things to discuss. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting Invincible Levy to still be alive. It feels like people rarely die within here, but I guess that kinda makes sense. If you're thinking about it from a comic book perspective, they need recurring villains to come back constantly to cause trouble for the heroes. So most of the time it's just them figuring out ways for that to happen. It's kinda poetic, for lack of better phrasing. Immediately after Powerplex has his spiel about how much he hates Invincible and one day he hopes everybody sees what a terrible person he is, well, who knew that day would be pretty soon? Because a bunch of reports start coming in all over the news that Invincibles have been spotted worldwide, wreaking havoc on as many foundations and countries that they possibly can. So much bloodshed, so many lives gone, and the face everybody will associate it with is Invincibles. He did this. It might not have been him, but you could come to that assumption that it was probably because of him, and this won't do any good but make more powerplexes in the world, make more people hate Invincible, and it's all Angstrom Levy's fault. The guy Invincible thought he killed, the guy he went through this entire season feeling guilt towards that he killed, the guy who he almost gave up being a superhero for because he killed him, he is still alive. And he still hates Invincible and wants the world to hate Invincible as much as he does. I also don't understand why he hates this Invincible, the only good guy. Whatever. We're not talking about that right now. Phase 1 was successful, but things quickly turned for the worse when the Invincible variants asked Angstrom to hold up his end of the bargain, and he didn't oblige and sent them away. Mark then quickly dealt with Angstrom. I guess it was that easy for him. It seemed like then Mark made up his mind. He had Angstrom in the air with Oliver yelling, "Do it! Kill him! Do you see all the damage he's done? Do it before it's too late!" But he escaped before Mark could finish him off. You know, Angstrom has a hard life, and it's just getting worse for him. Now he's gonna have to work on these technician dudes because he also didn't hold up their end of the deal. You know, at least he looks more like a supervillain now, so I guess that's cool. But no time to rest, because while they were trying to clean up the wreckage that happened previously, Conquest appears. This guy is assumingly one of the strongest and most insane Viltrumites out there, and he's on Earth with the orders to take it over by any means necessary. He likes to have fun, he likes to kill, and he wants to hurt Invincible. All of the development it felt like Mark was going through, from the Powerplex situation to the Invincible War conundrum, it kind of started to feel null and void because they're fighting in the middle of the city with people all around them. It felt very similar to how his fight with Omni-Man went, if you will, just on a grander scale. It was his morals versus Conquest. But what can you do to someone who only knows fun from violence? He has no high superiority complex like other Viltrumites do. He only likes to fight. He only knows destruction. He has no friends. He has no emotions. He only knows one thing, and that's to destroy and make people feel bad. He kills people. He hurts Oliver. He almost kills Eve. And while Invincible is fighting and screaming for them to leave, they love Mark and they want to help him no matter what. He understands that could get them killed and doesn't want that outcome to happen, but they never listen to him. I will say, it is lucky Adam Eve was there though, because her busted powers finally kicked in after her near-death experience, and it was enough of a distraction for Mark to get the upper hand with 2 broken hands and a broken leg. He has no other choice but to headbutt this old crazy man to death. In a similar scene to the Angstrom almost death scene, I guess I should call it now, it seems like Mark has a new resolve. His mind is made up. While recovering, he looks at Oliver and tells him he was right. He's been right this entire time. He should have been killing. If anyone ever threatens the people he loves again and will do anything in the world for, he won't hesitate to kill. Is this good or bad? Honestly, who knows? It feels like a lot of superheroes deal with this constant battle of morals, but not as strong as Invincible's. Just from a cartoon and movie perspective, at least, I cannot speak on comics at all. Most never kill on purpose. It does happen, but most of the time it's either by accident or because somebody's possessing their body, or maybe somebody's in disguise of them and are doing these heinous things in their name. But also, I've just never seen any of these heroes get ran through a horde of people like a kid popping bubbles. I guess now the question is, will he keep his word? Will he actually not hesitate to kill? Or is this just emotions talking? He seems to keep his word a lot of the time, like in this season where he decided he wasn't working for Cecil anymore. He still refuses to, and I don't think he ever will. So I don't think this time will be any different. I do think he will keep his word. But I guess now the question is, when will things get too far? And how things will get too far? But that's basically it. What are your opinions on Invincible Season 3 and the moral conundrum that he went through throughout this entire season? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm sorry I didn't do episode reviews, but I don't know, I want to do something slightly bigger. Maybe this is it, maybe it isn't. But with that being said, I'll see each and every one of you around next time. Okay, goodbye.
fight.